Yeah, almost.
There's an action item.
I think
So we're live.
just a little the wording, that's correct.
Well, I think this is a record breaker right here. It's a record breaker.
Yeah.
How to participate.
Right.
And then on Jared.
Sure.
The wonder cruise, right?
How are you, John?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Art.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott.
Gotta have that. What's out of that?
That's a good question. I know Jonathan has a question.
We should do a photo shoot for your room.
That's fun.
I
Say that you're done.
gotta get it fixed.
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How else do we do this?
I've been watching schools. Yeah. That's a good sign.
That's
Very well do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope so.
Hey, John,
Yes, sir.
so my camera on this thing quit working, but I don't know if there's an on off for that.
There is, and it's a.
If I come by sometime with my, at your call.
Yeah, it's really nice. If you ever are, if you do that, it'll mute you and turn that camera right off so nobody can see it. So super fast. But also I didn't know it existed until like a week ago, because mine has the same exact thing.
So if I would have.
Is that live or is
I
that
don't
off?
know that.
No, it's off.
Okay, that's.
You can
fine.
see it when it's
Yeah.
off.
But I was
Is it just a red dot when it's off?
Yeah.
I use
I know.
this for.
That's the trick, that's the trick.
Right.
Is that off?
It is a trick.
That is off. I think that's off. right?
Okay, cool.
I'd like to welcome everybody to Idaho Springs, October 10th, 2022, work session. We'll call it to order at 6 p.m. And first up is interviews for council vacancy. And Jeremy and Kent, welcome. Glad to see both of you. And full confession, I didn't realize we had two, and until the very last day, we had the both of you come in on the last day of the applications being accepted. And I'm going to open it up for questions here with council. And Jeremy, if you don't mind, I'll have you kick us off.
Okay.
And please come up and have a seat.
Right. That's all good. How are you guys?
Good.
Good. Now, you have had quite a presence with our fire authority. And
Okay.
I just, I'm thinking that is good. You know, we are threatened up here in the foothills, and of course, one of our biggest fears would be a wind-driven, event. And anyways, I think that is certainly something that helps. And I'm just, I'll open it up with what made you decide to come on to council?
Well, honestly, I've got, for the first time in my adult life, I have free time. Weird to say that, right? We'll back up. Jeremy knows, I'm also the assistant fire chief for Cricket Fire Authority. I took that position full-time in June of 2020. Prior to that, I was part-time in that position for about 4.5 years. And I worked full-time for Wagner Equipment Company, which is a cat dealer for those that may or may not know in Colorado. Yeah, mostly in mining. My whole career has been in mining. Starting at Henderson Mine and working through the state. So in 2020, I decided I was going to go into a single job. First time in my entire life, I had one job, and it's been great. Well, now I'm 2 years into that, and I realized that I have additional time to give for the first time ever. It was a fluke, happened to see the council opening in the paper. And did some quick thinking, like, I think I've got enough additional time in my daily schedule to accomplish what this would entail. So talked to a few people, including my current boss, as hey, what do you think of this idea? Tell me I'm crazy. He didn't tell me I was crazy. Unfortunately, he let me down completely. So I applied. I've been heavily involved, of course, with my current position with the city. I've been involved with the Veterans Coalition for the last couple of years and some other things as I start essentially trying to fill my free time with something that I believe is productive, which brought me back to giving us a whirl. And I think I could be productive in council. This for going on parties, I am independent for the first time ever. I made another change I made 2 years ago. But what I found in my current role and everything I've done in life professionally is everything has two sides, right? What's the correct answer, usually somewhere in the middle. I would like to bring that to this setting. So that's really what brought me here. And then I submitted a letter at the last moment, hoping that Wonder would like miss the email again. Only let me down, and she caught it immediately and replied. So two disappointments involved in this process, unfortunately. No, I like to get back to the city. I've been involved with the city at some level, going back to about 2000. President of the Society for Idaho Springs Fire Department, so 4th of July, all of those events. So yeah, that's what brought me here. I'm open for hopefully a grilling, no?
Well, you know, I'm
Not that type of a crowd.
gonna open it up to council, but I just want you to know there's only one political stripe here on council, and it really is whatever's best for the city of Idaho Springs, whatever that looks like.
Exactly, and that's the whole point. I think everything we do right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we all have diverse backgrounds. I think.
And
Yeah.
that
But it
helps.
doesn't really come to play.
And I think it really helps though that there is a diverse
Yeah.
background because everyone on council has some really unique life experiences and it really is a great fabric.
Yeah.
Here.
And Sunnyside represents, let's face it, right? We're like 4 of us here in the room.
What are the odds?
Look, we don't shovel snow.
We don't either.
But I'll open it up for council questions.
Well, I've got something.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, what do you think? Because you've been here since 1998 is what I read, correct?
Yeah, I grew up I graduated high school here. I lived at 817 Car Boulevard. I moved back after 5 years in the Navy in '98.
Okay,
And that's,
so it's changed a lot in the last 24
it's changed a lot in the last,
years.
even probably 2 years, right?
So I'm gonna stretch it out a little bit. Tell me what you think, tell me what you think about the direction that the city's gone in the last 10 years.
I think it's been good. I think, well, it's twofold, right? The city's done a very good job of growing the business within town because that's where our tax base is based off of, more so than property taxes, we all know that. We've got a finite amount of space for future development as far as residential goes. I think that's known by everybody. So unless you raise taxes on residential, the only other way to actually increase revenue in the city is within sales tax. And I know it's been controversial in the last couple of years with closing downtown and making it essentially a walking mall, which I think is awesome. We walked it again tonight because we walk downtown and don't have to worry about dodging cars. I think it's great. And I think the results show that. The redevelopment of Carl Boulevard has been probably one of the biggest game changers. We actually have sidewalks in our town. Those of us that have lived here our entire lives, like when we're the same boat, we remember when sidewalks were something that was a few and far between thing. Now we have kids that are riding their bikes on sidewalks, which allows us to have families that live in town, which is huge for us. All of it, I think, it has been remarkable progress, even going back 20 years since I've been back, and how town has grown and how that. But I think there's also a whole bunch of work ahead, right? There's a whole series of things that are still unfinished and that still need to happen and to keep up with with essentially our changing economy within our county. That's the big thing, is we're seeing that shift right now.
Do you mind if I ask one more question just because of where he's located? What's your thoughts on the Argo property development?
Actually, as the official neighbor of that project,
The neighborist.
the neighbor is right, we share a property line. I think it's good. I think if it's done well, the tax revenue to the city and will be amazing. I think the return visits beyond just them going to the Argo, I think will also generate additional revenue. But the issue with that is we continue with these types of development is where do you house your employees, right? How do you find employees who work there that they can afford to either drive from Denver or live within town? And then that's what brings us into the other issues that face the city of how do you increase, how do you balance growth, right?
Mhm.
We all want balanced growth. And that's somewhere between, we want it the same way it was in 1983, and we want houses on every open spot, right? There's a happy medium there, and what that looks like. I don't think any of us have a clear picture of what it looks like. We know there's a balance. So that's probably one of the issues that goes with that development is as they bring people in and they put in a restaurant and a hotel or whatever that final development looks like, that's only as good as can you bring in employees that can staff it. Otherwise, it's just it's an empty building, right?
Mhm.
Which generates zero tax dollars beyond property tax.
And having to make sure it's safe, you know.
Well, yeah, we want to make sure it's safe, and I've actually had conversations with the chief on several occasions with, now that's Idaho Springs property, so what's the impact of the police department? What's the impact of public work? What's all the impacts that trail out of that is way beyond the initial commercial development that everybody's, well, this is amazing. What's the true impact? What's the impact to water and wastewater long term? Beyond the plant, the plant's been rebuilt, it's larger, but is that still, is it big enough to keep up with all the growth, or is it not? And if it's not, how is that funded, right? Is that developer funded? That should be current taxpayers as much as future development, their fees. Oh, I think, I'm not trying to skirt around it, but there's a lot more involved with that and beyond it. I think it's great if it's done responsibly, which I think so far it has been. But what that final product is, I don't think any of us truly know, because it has changed so much in the last 3 years from initial inception
Mhm.
to where they're at today with construction and what their next steps could, or maybe as they work through their issues.
All right, thanks, thank you.
John or Art, question?
No, I've known Jeremy for a long time.
And put this together for,
We've done part authority with him, so I know play with well.
Scott, do you have any?
Maybe if you could explain how you think you would form your opinion on a decision you might have to make. We all come into things and might have some preconceived ideas, but then we listen to a lot of different people who stand up and talk and have different opinions. How do you think that would affect you when you make a decision or something?
I've kind of learned through my professional life that usually what my first idea is not correct, right? It might be 80% correct, we'll say. But that 20% is usually what gets shifted. So what I've learned is have an honest conversation with both sides and do an independent research. It's not I think the best statement, and Andy probably understands this, we joke about with fire investigations, is prove what didn't happen, right? We all have an idea. I think this is the direction we need to go. Well, but I need to prove why the other directions are wrong. So if I go through that process, which I try to do consistently, it usually brings me back to somewhere, like I said, somewhere in the middle. Like that 80%, yeah, this is definitely the right answer. Usually about 50% of the time, well, I missed about 5 cents. My initial coin flip, we'll call it, right? So I try to look at all sides of things. I want to have conversations, but I also want to, trust but verify is what it said. You want to validate the data. I'm a data-driven person up through my professional life. If you tell me that your development's gonna increase tax revenue by 4%, I wanna run the numbers and show that that's something in that ballpark is real. Versus let's have a conversation, I guarantee you 4%. I can guarantee you 6%, doesn't mean I'm deliver that, right? So we don't have those conversations. So I tend to do that. And I believe face-to-face conversations and every decision are key. Whether you like their opinion or not, it doesn't matter that you have to have, we won't have those conversations and get their side of the opinion of whatever the issue could be, right? Because if you understand where they're coming from, I don't think you can make a competent, sound decision and stand behind it, right? Defend it. That's the whole point. That's how I look at everything I do in life. And so far it's not led me astray. So I'm gonna stick with that. If that answers your question.
Yeah,
it did.
Okay,
What did you think about the decision for us going ahead and approving the building at the football field? Did that at all?
I think it's great. Right? It's a perfect example. We know we need housing within our town. We also know that we need additional commercial tax revenue. That project delivers both of those in some to varying degrees. But on the other side of the issue, of course, is I went to high school here, just like majority of people live in town, right? We're multiple generations. We all went to school there. We played football in the field. But if we base our future decisions off of, well, we've always done it that way, that's always been the football field. Then we kind of back ourselves into a corner. And then if down the road we're looking for revenue, say Public Works needs a new loader, which is eventually going to happen, which is a huge investment in the city. And we've maintained this. We're stuck in 1986. And now we're going, well, how do we fund all this? Well, we could have funded it by allowing responsible development that would have actually generated money that would have funded this project. So I think it's a good thing. I did plan review on it. We made a few changes. I asked for a few changes on that. From an access perspective and it's a general use, but I think it's great. But I know I've had 100 conversations with people that think my opinion is completely wrong on that. And they've told me why. And I understand where they're coming from also. But I think it's the right thing to do. And I'm gonna say I grew up essentially up the street from that football field, and right now it's generating zero benefit to the city besides growing weeds.
Well, you talk a lot about funding, talk a lot about revenue.
Yeah.
And that's all great. What value do you put on the residents? Their value against or for some of these issues?
I think the opinion of the residents is important, just like it would be where I live, but I think we have to balance that, right? The whole point of city government or even any government at any level is you have to balance what the needs and wants of the residents are versus what the needs are for the municipal, for the government. And then you come to kind of a consensus on what it does the best good for everybody. There's always going to be one or two individuals or even 100 individuals that think what you did is completely the wrong idea. And there'll be 100 people that think it's the best idea in the world. But at the end of the day, if we're making these decisions, we have to be willing to stand up and say, we made the decision for the following reason, and you have to be able to justify that. And that's not just because I thought it was great on Tuesday, I did it. We made the decision for the following 12 reasons, which has the following benefits, and the negative side of that are as follows. And I think if we do a thorough process, we can articulate that. We're never going to make everybody happy. But at the end of the day, I think the whole point is to do what's best. What we've had determined is best for the long-term viability of the town. And that's always going to be a heartache. Like I said, I grew up walking by that football field, and I understand the importance of the football field. I feel a little bit myself, but that doesn't mean I'm going to base my future opinion on development completely off of that. Hopefully I answered it. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, you did.
All right, any further questions? All right, Jeremy, thank you very, very much.
Thanks for the
Appreciate
time.
it.
Thank you.
And just a note to council, we spent about 18 minutes with Jeremy. And of course, we would want to give Kent equal time. Kent, please come on up. Hey, welcome, and I can't believe that we're all like as close together as we are. We're all practically neighbors. I don't know, there must be something to the water. It's incredible.
Thank you for having us.
But hey, I want to kick it off with the same question that I had for Jeremy. What made you decide to put in for council?
I really have a similar answer. I've lived here for about 5 years and basically the exact age of my kid, and it's been a wonderful place to be. And as Jeremy was saying, even in 5 years, there's been quite a bit of changes. I remember coming to this town, not as a resident, but as a visitor when I was younger, and it certainly has changed a lot. It's a wonderful place to be. It's going through a pretty important transformation right now. I think that's certainly, everybody would agree. I've lived in towns that have gone through similar transformations before, where they've gone from their traditional economic base, various different kinds, to a more of a tourist economy. I've seen it done pretty well, and I've seen it done pretty poorly. And so this wonderful town that I really love living in, I'm happy to give back and happy to lend some of my experience, having lived through that transformation a couple of times before as a citizen anyway. And similar to Jeremy said, I have the time. We kind of chatted about a year ago when it was me and Lisa, and I had a small business and a full-time job, but since then my business has gone well enough that I just have a small business now. That's certainly demanding. I do have the time to commit to it. I've been able to be on planning commission. I've found that very rewarding. And while I'd hate to leave another gap on planning commission, I think we can fill those, and I'm happy to try to help out on council.
Well, and I think council had alluded to you that planning commission would be a good place, and that we could really use you there. And of course, one of your major strengths is a longtime business owner in downtown. And I'm just wondering what other strengths do you feel you bring other than your planning commission experience and your business experience? What things would help us out here on council?
Sure. Well, I've been in leadership roles plenty, both, like you said, as a small business owner, not just here, but elsewhere as well. Been on a few different committees and boards, public and private. But one of the big things I think is you talked about the diversity of the council and being part of a young family that's moved here, and as a young kid, I think I can help bring some of that perspective. As a business owner, I work with the issues in town. Oddly, I would consider it a strength that as we look at housing as one of our major issues, I have actually been an unhoused person before. I have lived on the streets for a short amount of time and come back from that. It's not an experience I would recommend, but it has given me certainly viewpoints on what some of our more disadvantaged citizens go through, and some empathy, not just empathy, but experience there to connect with them. Another thing, jumping around a little, going with the another issue that we face is communication with our citizens. I hear a lot of times from other citizens about Idaho Springs, I don't know what they're up to in city council. What are they working on this week? Who approved this? And it turns out, well, they debated it for weeks. They were begging for people to come in. And so that's obviously a challenge that we have, is communicating the, what the agenda is, what the items are that are being discussed here. There's things are published in the Current. We post things on the website, and that's wonderful, and that definitely should continue. And there seems to be a lot of good faith effort to do that. But I think as a person with a lot of technical experience, I've been a technical director at various companies, and somebody with experience working with younger people and professional families, younger families and professionals, I mean, we can expand that communication, not just posting on social media, but actively reaching out, actively notifying, actively soliciting participation, but even just not people knowing what our agenda is.
Council? Questions?
Go ahead, Art, go ahead. I'm trying to like get mine in my head.
Okay, we don't have all night. I figured you'd say that every, I apologize. Where did you live before? I mean, what areas, was it Colorado or outside the state that?
I've lived in a lot of places. I grew up with family in Arkansas and Colorado, was back and forth a lot. I lived in Golden from 2003 to 2012 or so. And that's one of the places where I saw a similar transformation. It certainly changed a lot during that time. I moved back to Arkansas, where I grew up in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is in the Ozarks. That's another place that has gone through a very similar transformation. I remember it being a town, a small mountain town like this one, traditionally based around the college there. But as the population has grown, as the highway was built to and then through it, it as college is still there, it's still a major employer, but outdoor recreation has become enormous there. There's a few different Fortune, 100, 500 companies that are centered there, Walmart, Tyson, a few others that have brought in a lot of people from all over the world, and they want more to do, more nightlife, more outdoor activities, everything like that you can imagine. It has transformed that place like crazy. I think Golden is an example of a place that has not done it really well, not allowed a lot of outside influence to influence how they change, allowed a lot of sprawl, a lot of veteran communities, not kept a strong sense of community. Fayetteville and the surrounding areas in Arkansas have done it pretty well. They've kept the core of their town. It still feels like that small college town, even when the population is quadrupled since I was a kid. And I think that those experiences kind of inform, the situation we're at, where change is coming to us, and we get to decide if we take hold of it to maintain the feel of our community, to maintain a tax generating base that can tax the tourists and the people that can afford it without being so aggressive that we make it worse off for our more impoverished citizens. Or we decide if those decisions are made for us by outside places and we end up with nothing but Airbnbs and chain stores.
Hey, Art, I thought you and Kate both had great development questions. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna rip you off and ask, how do you feel about that the football field development?
Yeah, mixed feelings, as we were talking about, housing is certainly a need and it's pretty hard to fix without building housing, so it's gotta go somewhere. I know that there were a lot of concerns from the citizens about various aspects of it, the height, the shading, ice, just building up in general. I like that there's parks involved with it, open spaces that are open to the public, not just the people that live there. I like the amount of communication that happened between the developer and the town. I like the public meetings. I understand the concerns of folks, and it's a tightrope to walk we need housing. It's gonna be a tightrope to build it while maintaining, but that's always the balance you have to walk as a community. And living all the places that I've lived, I've also seen communities in decline, and it falls in the development there and the issues with it fall, in my opinion, into the good problems to have type of category. There's still problems. They're not not problems, but it's better than empty storefronts. It's better than all of your best people moving out of town. And I think that managed poorly, that's something that could happen here. I've seen it happen in other great vibrant towns, and luckily we don't seem to be on that path. Everybody seems to be doing a really great job of understanding. So if people want to live here and we want to have things like the gondola and other places and other awesome places to work, we're gonna have to have people that live somewhere.
Well, you seem to have a broad background in seeing a lot of different changes around. Are there any of those changes that might not have, should not have taken place, that there was a gem right there and needed nothing to add to that?
Well, when they added the glass door at the Ace High Tavern, it really, in Golden, it really changed the experience. It was a nice dive bar, and then there was light inside. But that's just a joke. So, but in reality, I like the old plywood way better. But in reality, it's too tight of a focus. I think missing the forest for the trees is a real problem that can happen with these changes. And what I mean by that is, we have to take a holistic approach. We have to remember that tourists apparently now are a large part of our economy. We have to remember that people live here. We have to remember that people operate businesses here. And we can't get too laser focused on one of those factors or any of the other factors that I didn't mention. And we can't get too broad-minded, really trying to walk that balance. So specifically, for Golden, for instance, the investment in bedroom communities, housing tracts with nothing going on except houses. And sure, they have sidewalks, but there's nowhere to walk to except a friend's house, I guess. That's a mistake in my opinion. And now they couldn't just build up everything in Golden proper, you might say, in that one valley. They ran out of room just like we do. They have the option that we don't of expanding their borders, or at least that we don't as much. But they didn't have to build a bedroom community, a more holistic approach there, build some cool stuff over there, build something for people who don't live there to go see, to go do there. I don't think that should have been done. That doesn't make sense to me. It increases people just driving all the time, which disintegrates a community, you don't know your neighbor. It makes air pollution worse, all the problems with driving all the time. That one in particular, I would say. But in general, laser focus. For them, it was laser focused on housing. Now, housing is important for us, but we have to remember to build diverse neighborhoods. That's a healthy neighborhood.
I'm pretty sure you've heard that we have a 1% sales tax increase on the ballot. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I sometimes have an unpopular opinion about this. The town that I came from, Fayetteville in Arkansas, most equivalent sales tax measures there passed. And as a result, that town has incredible services. Most of them were temporary. It's a 1% sales tax for a certain amount of time to pay for the new library or what have you. I like specific sales tax, things like that, especially.
You mean sunset taxes?
Yes, exactly, sunset taxes. I like those, of course, when the project is worthwhile. I understand that sales taxes are regressive. They tend to hurt poor people more because they spend more dollars, more of a portion of their income places where sales tax is charged. So that has to be balanced. I think it's probably a good idea, but a question earlier was how do you deal with discussion on these issues, especially when you might have a preconceived notion. My preconceived notion is the town I grew up in, these pass all the time and we have wonderful services there. But as I talk to people, I try to update my notions. I try to take like you were saying data, I think the same way. Try to take like a weighted update to my knowledge, and try to balance that against my preconceived notion, not change it, but remember the different viewpoints and find the balance between them.
Excellent.
All right, John, any questions?
I didn't ask Jeremy, so I don't feel.
Oh, I understand. All right, Scott?
Well, that's a similar one that I asked Jeremy. He alluded to, we have a few issues that are torn in the community. And when you base that decision, are you able to make a decision based on, how would you base that decision when you get not a 50-50 split, but you get a lot of people on both sides of the aisle trying to form your decision? How do you think you would do that?
Well, I try to take there's a, not to get too nerdy, but there's a concept in statistics called like Bayesian statistics. And it's where you take a preconceived notion and new data updates that, and then new data updates that new updated. That's how I try to approach it. I come in with my opinion, which as a counselor or an active political person, perhaps is more informed than the lay person, but perhaps not. But no more valuable than any of our citizens. We're all here. We're all humans in this city. So try to update it. I also try to remember that typically the loudest people are not necessarily representative. And that's a really tough balance to strike. And by the way, much props for y'all for doing that all the time. I've gotten a taste of that on planning commission, and it's not an easy one. I'm sure I'm understanding it. You'll understand. But so that means some outreach. That means not just depending on the people who come to speak, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease and all of that. So you need to do outreach. You need to go out and talk to the people affected by it. Talk to the people not affected by it, and take into account the fact that they're not affected by it. And update your opinions, but don't override them. And sometimes, and this is a weird thing, but in representative democracy, sometimes you vote against what you personally would do because you really have through all that outreach seen that it's just not what the community wants. And sometimes you vote against what the community wants because you think with your value system that it's the right thing. And that's just a tough call, but you have to take all of that into balance, and every decision will be its own special little unicorn. Thank you. Brandon?
Any further questions? We still have a couple more minutes, and I have one for you that was asked of Jeremy. How do you feel about that Argo development potential?
Similar to my feelings about the football field, mixed feelings. But for different reasons. It's one of those kind of big, maybe not quite moonshot, but like big development projects that say, make or break on the direction that we're going in town. I feel generally good about the direction we're going. I know that there's always like, well, we don't want to be bailed, right? And I think we're not doing that. I think that we're investing in our various areas of town, downtown, East End, the residential sections of town, and with a good, thoughtful approach and working with town, with the citizens. I think that the Argo redevelopment is a big project that, if done right, can fit right into that, but easily could be one of the things that starts us down the path of just crazy overdevelopment. But I haven't seen these signs of that yet. Everybody seems to have their heads on straight about it and being very communicative. I think it's horrible, the theft and stuff that's been going on with it, and I hope that they're able to make it through. I would hate to see any project falter because of something like that, and not because we didn't think it was a fit or something. But I think it can be a fit, and I think it'll go well. And as somebody whose house is near the base of it, I'm sure we'll see increased traffic, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it'll help get, our street repaved. As a business owner, come on, it'll be great. As long as we remember to balance it with parking, with employee housing, and with better facilities for tourists to make more than a day trip here. Because as I heard in the meeting today, it was a very good point that we're becoming known as a great place for a day trip, but we don't have the amenities to make a weekend here right now for most tourists that want to do something like the Argo Adventureland. I forget what it's called, sorry. But if you want to stay for a couple of days, we'll need those amenities too. And there's some of that coming, but we'll need to keep all that in mind holistic, like I was saying. It'll need to fit into the bigger project.
All right, any further questions? Well, we are dead on 18 minutes.
That's perfect.
So,
I'll know what you're doing.
So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's good.
All right. Next up on our agenda is the recognition wall. And by the way, I want to personally thank Kate Collier for bringing this up. A very worthwhile discussion. And I think I'm gonna turn this over to Jonathan.
Mayor and council, in 2018, we had come up with some new names to put onto the wall. That needs to be completed. And so the first thing I wanted to do is propose that we go ahead and start that process to add names annually. Also did inspection of the plaques that are on the wall. We should replace them. I don't think they were designed to be outdoors, and they've lasted, I think now pretty close to 10 years. So I did look at a couple of opportunities to replace those plaques in town. I put kind of the pricing for those plaques in my staff report. One thing I don't know is what installation costs would be for them. And I need to have somebody come out and look at the wall itself, because the way that it's built, I don't want to create damage if we're taking them off and putting them on. I want to make sure we do that properly. And the other thing I was thinking is that our plaques that we got, I think, are more intended for an indoor facility. I think getting an outdoor plaque would be better, but they are significantly more expensive. So based on your direction, that would be my next step, is to have somebody come look at the wall. I would like to replace all the plaques on the wall. They were supposed to have like a small biography on them, and you can't really see that on all of them. And some of the people I know a little better than others that are on this list. So we probably need to look at what those biographies say, and that could be a character limit based on what the new plaques say. And then we have the individuals that were proposed for inclusion on the wall. And I wasn't 100% sure if we wanted to start by putting them all on the wall, or if we wanted to go through an annual process where we'd add one of these names annually. And then the other thing is that maybe during that annual process, we would go ahead and have a nomination period. In my staff report, I attached what was determined by council to be the rules for being eligible for being placed on the wall. So those are in my staff report.
Can I make a few comments? Okay. Thanks for looking into the type of plaques that went on there. I know that when we put the memorial wall up many years ago, not many, but a few years ago, I don't think that we actually took that into consideration. Two things I would want to suggest. One is, I love the idea of the biographies, but what if we did it with a QR code so that we wouldn't have to put it on the plaque itself, which would cost more money, but it would just be something that we could upload. Okay, here's the new name, D, is on there now. So let's do a little bio about D. And that way people just walk up just like a menu these days.
We could do that on the plaque itself too. So that could be kind of neat.
Yeah, so I mean, sort of like into the new age. And then I was hoping that we could declare a day each year where we put a certain number of people on the memorial wall. So I think you have a good, set of people that have certainly passed on. That would be, I think their families would very, very much like to see their names on the wall sooner rather than later. But maybe as we get everybody up to date, we can kind of go by for a year that we, count the council at the time nominates, and maybe planning commission nominates as well. Fire authority, police department, public works, so that everybody has the opportunity to put a name in. So those are my two suggestions.
Yeah, I thought the names that we have ready and waiting are excellent names. They really are. These are folks that are very deserving of being on the wall. Jonathan, you had a range of like low, maybe 100 to maybe as high as 300 for things suitable for outside.
Yeah, and part of that is just installation costs. That's the factor I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I gotcha. What I'm looking for council's direction. Would you be comfortable replacing all of the names and going with one additional name a year, or would you like to see the current names replaced with updated outdoor plaques and have all of the ones that have been waiting added?
That.
I think originally that's what was to put one on a year.
It was, but I think because we waited since 2015 to do it, that we're falling
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't necessarily think that you have to pass to have your name on there either. But like, if we can just get caught up, I think we could probably get it down to 2 or 3 a year. What did I say? Yeah, you hope to be nice to them. I mean, genuinely, it would be nice to be recognized.
It's not a
in that time.
prerequisite.
Yeah, thank you. But it would be nice to, and these families have been waiting for a while for, we do things in different places, but this would be something that we could honor them every year with an unveiling of the new plaques. I mean, I just think there's a lot of good feelings that could be put out into the community from this small gesture.
Jonathan?
And I like your idea about, put the biography on your, just, yeah.
With the QR code, yeah, those
Yeah.
things are amazing.
Build a digital version of the wall too, and that would be how we could handle
Like
it.
graveyards.
We
like the
definitely
graveyards.
wanna upgrade the ones that are there, because we don't want new plaques next to the
Right.
old ones that
Look
don't
terrible.
look as good.
Yeah.
So my question was about the biography thing. How long are the biographies that are on there?
If we do the QR code route, like I was just suggesting, it's a really good idea. We could almost have unlimited, whatever.
Maybe you could put
Yeah.
like councilman or mayor
Sure.
or.
Oh,
what
that's a
they
good
did,
idea.
just
What's the
some-
reason that they're recognized?
Yeah, and then have the QR code have more of a in-length biography.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So that there is, like, hey, I want to know about this mayor. Just an aside, I was down in Paonia and I met a lady at their, they have a great historical, like kind of like South Park. They have a really well done one. And I was talking to her and her father was the first doctor in Idaho Springs. So I'm trying to find some background information to make sure that is correct, but he is buried in our graveyard. And it would be very cool she was like, I already talked to her about this, by the way, so it kind of has to happen. But I mean, that her family could be acknowledged in that way. There's just a lot of people out there that I think that have a strong connection to IS that we don't know about.
And then the other question would be is, how do you gather this information on the biography? Get family approval so that we don't have errors on.
I think that's probably what I would like, just to make sure it's proper. And then anybody, I mean, some of these, all of these folks, a lot of people know. So I think what we could do is maybe those biographies, what I might suggest, if I could, is if I could bring back a cost estimate, like a actual cost, which I think this is gonna be less than $2,000. But I could do that and see if I could acquire some information and you guys could approve, or we could have just go through just because we're going to create a formal process for this, my thought was we just go ahead and formally adopt these names onto the wall. And then we could,
Add the QR
Yeah.
after. I mean, what about some of these obituaries were quite well done as far as information? They might be we could just upload their obituary or their in memorial, if that was something that was part of their service.
council also honored Dorothy Kyler last year on National Women's
Oh,
Month,
yeah.
for National Women's
Right.
Month. And so we have some really good information for her. And most of the people most of these people know, everyone knows what they did
What
in
they
Idaho
did.
Springs. So,
Right.
but I could, if I just need a little bit of time to make that right and make sure it's written
All
properly.
right, so, and just so you can get a guesstimation of the cost, is council, all right with redoing the names that exist, plus making up for lost time and adding the ones that have been waiting in the wings to the wall?
Absolutely.
All right. Scott, you all right with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
do we want to put a figure on that or just?
Well, I
Until
think
we come to that.
Jonathan's thinking a couple thousand-ish.
What I would suggest, the names that are already on the wall
Mhm.
do have underneath the name a very brief description of why they're being recognized. So they
Okay.
have like mayor and the dates, or, community activists and something like that. So I think for these names that are waiting, if we can come back to you with those names and then a proposed tagline underneath, that would be appropriate. We'd like to have that direction from council, and then we can get them all made at the same time. Does that sound good, Jeff?
Sure.
Okay.
I think I could probably have that relatively quickly if we could just schedule we'll probably maybe in a couple weeks.
At a future work session, we'll bring it back, and then for direction, and we'll have some better costs for you.
Thanks, guys.
Would you then like to, in January, to get back on track with these guidelines, consider new names to go on after the first of the year?
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe after we've made up for lost time, do one additional name a year.
I wonder if there's an actual activist community participant day that's recognized nationally. And if there is, that would be a great day to make it, that's the day that we'd like to nominate our new people so that we can have, there's a day for everything.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there's one out there.
worth,
A volunteer day or something like that, yeah.
Perhaps we'll also come back with a proposed date for the ceremony as well in the spring.
All right. So if we're ready to move on, I would like to get off topic and off the agenda just for a moment, because we do have Jeremy and Kent in the audience. And I would propose to council in our regular meeting, we do have on the agenda the council appointment. And the last time we did this, we took a meeting to think about our applicants, and I polled everyone on council. And I'm just thinking that that's a very fair way to do it. And if you don't mind, I would like to do that again. And if Kent and Jeremy would like to stay through the rest of the meeting, of course you're welcome. But it also frees you up if you wanted to go home tonight and didn't want you hanging out, because that is even towards the end of the agenda. But I would like to strike that from the regular meeting agenda, and I will announce that at our regular 7 p.m. meeting. And I would like for you to take some time and deliberate, and I will get your input on that for the next council meeting.
Sure, thanks, Jeff. That's a good idea.
All right, we will move on to the parking plan at project support and the library. Jonathan.
Mayor and council, we have been working really hard in our parking facilities to promote access to community assets in our town. When I say community assets, I mean the places that are important for the people of Idaho Springs, and not necessarily just visitors. And so we built a really contextual system that can change as needed based on what we see on the street. And that's one of the things that's a hallmark of our program, and one of the things that's made it successful. And one thing that's come up recently is that we need to analyze what's happening basically in the area of 14th Avenue between Minor Street and Colorado Boulevard, and just in the general vicinity of project support in the library. Both of those facilities, while the library has a pretty big tourism group that does use it, it really is intended for community use. And project support has very similar uses. They also have some challenges at project support with the demographic of folk that uses it. And it really comes down to access and just being able to get people in and out of the building. Of course, it is in a very busy area for town, and there's also the balance of the visitor traffic that we have there and public parking access for all the different facilities there, which include basically all of downtown. So we've been meeting with library staff as well as project support staff to determine whether or not we can come up with a better parking plan for the street there. And so what I've tried to do in the staff report, because it gets a little bit complex, is to lay it out in a couple of different ways. It's basically all the same information, but it comes down to what parking is available when Minor Street Marketplace is in pedestrian configuration, what parking is available when it's in one-way street configuration, where they're able to unload their buses and vans when they're working for Veterans of America or for project support luncheons, and how that parking is utilized. And so I think that we've come up with a pretty good plan here about how to do that. If you look in my staff report, there are some pictures where I kind of show the parking areas. The critical factors to remember is that some of the areas in this vicinity are residential parking. Residential parking means no employee parking. So what we've tried to do is work with everyone here to accommodate all the needs that happen there. One thing with the library is on the west side of 14th there, those parking spots are currently 3-hour, and originally that was a good arrangement because that meant that people could go into the library for free. What's actually happening though are people just using that to go dine for free downtown. So what has been proposed by library staff that I think city staff is okay with as well is to turn that into 1-hour parking. There is a handicap space on the northernmost of those 4 or 5 spaces there that you can see on that picture. That would be publicly available handicap space. On the other side of the street, what we would do and what has been done is those have been designated resident only parking. Those spaces on the west side of project support. I think city staff is open to the idea of putting a bus loading zone there, but they don't really want to do that because that would limit the ability to park there if it was a short-term loading zone. So what we have proposed is that would become a residential parking or a permit only parking area. They'd be able to use it for buses and they just need to manage the spaces. We think that most people in the city would not park there because they know it's project support parking, and having it be residential only permit parking would limit visitors parking there and give the city additional enforcement capabilities.
Jonathan, if I could just inject at this point. That 3-hour parking in front of the library is actually, I think, disastrous for 2 reasons. Folks, it's the perfect amount of time to go dine, right? So a lot of tourists are preventing library patrons from using that. And that's why the 1 hour would be really good. But the other side of that is now, since library patrons spots are taken, then they would go take spots that maybe somebody visiting project support would have had access to. So by doing the 1 hour, it's kind of a double benefit. That the library spots will actually be used for people that want to go in the library and right. I mean,
well, the other thing we can do, if we change this to 1 hour parking, it changes the way that we can work with interstate to enforce the spaces. And so one of the things it's telling Libby is that if you have a patron or somebody who needs to be there longer than an hour, that's an email to me, and then all of a sudden we're in a good situation. We can handle that.
You can even put a note in the.
Yeah, so that it just makes it from an enforcement perspective much easier than the 3-hour space. So I think that that'll help.
Well, if you have 3-hour parking, a lot of people are gonna push it 3
Yeah.
hours, 15 minutes, you're gonna make it 3 hours, and a half hour.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I just kind of like brainstormed a little bit today. So one of the things that's really the big impetus for this is that our seniors are kind of being, shut out of the availability, which you just said very well. I was actually thinking, what if we had from 9 to 11 or even 9 to 12, that shorter term parking, that it would just be senior parking only. I know this is way harder to enforce, but it might just, forget it. I think it's a terrible idea now. But
I don't know. I actually don't think it's a terrible idea, but I have to think about
how you enforce it.
we have in our computer system the ability to create what's called a zone. And so zones are how we originally managed the street, where the street was more expensive to park on the street than it was to park in the lots, which is a really good idea from a parking management perspective, to have more expensive and cheaper parking. And I might be able to do that, but I would need to get back to you on it, whether or not I can do that.
Well, then I've got one more. So Hose House is historical sites and facilities, correct? But it's owned by the city.
Yes.
It's not operated very often. I'm not trying to take anything away from the fire department. Absolutely. It might even give them some more, like they in somebody's face a little bit more. Is it possible to create 2 library only parking spots there?
were you in the meeting today? Jeez, is it believable?
No, I was
Oh,
not.
gosh, Kate, thank you for bringing that up.
But I thought that would
I
be,
was actually,
not even like an hour, just give me half an hour parking there.
well, actually, that was one of the things I had discussed with Jonathan and Andy today. It's just interesting that we came up with the same idea.
You're talking about head-in parking.
Yep.
correct?
Head in. I mean, whatever you gotta do, I don't
Yeah,
even
the
care.
we had talked about potentially putting a parallel space there and then making the easternmost spot handicapped, which was the mayor's idea. We definitely do that. The other thing I just want to say is Chief sometimes uses that parking for police vehicles in front of the hose house. And so we just want to make sure that was,
I think you guys can still do it, because where the STR is the STR, not STR, the SOR, the school, SRO. He kind of parks really tight up to the school, which is awesome, because I think it gives them a nice barrier there. I think we could still, and it's only from a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
We're not even open actually when he's there.
Just another consideration, I know the school, I mean, you may want to talk to the school because they also, I've seen substitute teachers park there. Because they don't have, they're not registered in the parking system, so then I've seen them park there and put up a little placard that.
Well, that's only gonna matter as long as Carlson's still there.
That's like in their
That's
little,
true.
their little driveway thing,
That little
right?
driveway,
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
little driveway.
Yeah, so it still leaves a spot in front of the hose house if we wanted another spot.
Does make
Right.
sense.
Right.
I think that we could figure that. She wants to.
The other thing is,
15 minutes for the handy.
dropping off and
But that's
picking up.
not making sense.
John, please, go ahead.
Dropping off and picking up for school, it's nightmare. When I try to get my grandkids, try to find a parking spot.
Yeah, I mean, that part of the day, the parents really seem to have that dialed down. I know it is difficult. I worked at a school and I worked at the library. But it is what it is. It's just,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know, I mean,
So,
if we're looking at long-term something,
yeah.
Kate, I'm really glad you brought that up. In fact, the longer term plan, but I mean, I think it's within the next several months. I think Jared called them bollards that were going to be placed basically in the front part of the south part of the driveway for the hose house anyways. And I had the same thought you did. We probably go all year and don't really need to change out a piece of fire equipment or what have you. So it really is a missed opportunity to have. And so this is what I was suggesting to help out project support, but not sacrifice a parking space. I was suggesting that we had a parking space where right now, nothing happens there in front of the central hose house. I don't think it hurts anything. I mean, look, if we wanted to change something out, even right now, we just cone it off for the day or something. And then give that easternmost parking space for the benefit of project support, a handicap spot.
Oh, yeah,
So then it's in close proximity to the building, right? So
sure.
you don't even lose the parking space in doing it that way, but it does give us a little more access to parking, you know. with-
That project support, yeah.
You know, so anyway, that was my idea. I'm sorry for my being a smart aleck, but it's amazing that, you know, here we are talking about the same thing, same day.
Yeah, it's good. Like mine's.
When we add another parking spot in front of come and go
Possibly,
there's only two.
I feel like there's pretty close to enough room there and we could measure it and see.
Yeah. I'm
Compact
not
car,
sure.
motorcycle, easily, because my car can slide in there when she's not around really easily. And I can get into that store before anybody finds me.
What I could do is, I could do a little bit more research about that driveway in front of the hose house and see what exactly could fit and where. And that could be a small modification to this parking plan if we were okay with the rest of the arrangements for it. Is that something you guys would like to see? Because I might, if we could fit one on both sides, maybe we figure out where we would paint the curves and then how we would orient that parking.
And then, of course, the follow-up with the signage.
There's
It sounds like a great plan, I think.
okay,
Lots of really, and with the hose house being thrown in and maybe getting project support and handicap, I think you're gonna make a lot of people happy.
Well, and I would like John Bardoni to weigh in on this. Another plan that we had thought about was maybe the addition of another handicap spot further north on 14th.
On that corner.
And well, and I think John pointed out, then you get into kind of a more steep
It's true.
area. And that's why I think an additional spot on 14th just south of the library would probably be more accessible for seniors to use to, you know, to go over the project support.
So you're thinking about like right in front of the library, like have one here and one on the corner?
No, I was saying that earlier, and it had actually been requested by folks at Project Support to have another handicap parking space further north on 14th. But then you start getting into this kind of steeper terrain, I believe John had pointed out. And that's why I was thinking if we gave a regular spot in front of the central hose house and then put up a sign for the handicap and the easternmost spot there on 14th, closest to project support, it would probably, for somebody that has a handicap sticker, be more accessible for them, you know, and it's a lot closer proximity to project support.
So I want to just be clear. So two in front of the hose house?
Well,
One,
I think only one will fit.
is that,
I would like, I can go over and measure it. So
I think
Kate
you
was
might-
talking about head-in parking and I think you were talking about parallel.
I was.
So what I could do is look at that and measure it and just see what fits. I know we can probably get two cars in that driveway, but then I think also make sure that Chief can use that parking as.
sure, he can always put it up.
Yeah,
The other thing, so in suggestion to that, if that was something that we can consider, then, and again, I'm not speaking for the library, I'm speaking as a council, so just always want to make that clear because my boss is watching me. Where you have the first handicapped on 14th to the west,
Yep.
maybe on the corner right there on 14th, another handicap, and that is very close to project support. Right there at almost, you know, they just cross the street to the, is that too far away from where you were thinking, or?
No, I mean, I was thinking of the, you know, so this is the north part of Minor there, and the eastern corner, you know, so northeast corner, it's the one closest to project support.
Okay,
But going up 14th, we changed those to 1 hour. And as Jonathan was pointing out, I think it's the fifth one up is already a handicap.
like on this side,
If you look at the screen right now,
that, and,
on up here,
John, just put them other here.
So I'm
so
saying we have a handicap right here.
Oh, okay.
right in
Okay.
this spot.
And
Okay.
we
Look at
don't,
that.
we don't lose parking even because we have just a regular
Right.
parking spot in front of the
That-
central O's house.
That was a handicap at one point, by the way.
Oh, up here?
Yep, right under the tree. A long time ago, it was a
Oh.
handicap.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
It was-
gotcha. And then, right now, I think it's this fifth spot here.
Yep.
Furthest up is a handicap.
Yep.
And it had been suggested, we'll skip over where the library employees park in that little driveway thing
Right,
and have another handicap.
that's what I was thinking.
But then this is where I think John Bardoni made a good point about, well, then you're getting on kind of a steep
Yeah,
grade there.
He's right, though.
So that's why I felt this first one being a handicap down
Yeah,
here.
yep.
Is just in closer proximity and it's like a level area.
Yep, no, he's right. John's right.
And John, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put words in your mouth, but how do you feel?
Perfectly fine.
Especially
Let
when
me
it's
know what
slushy or
the
icy.
final plan is and
Mm-hmm.
what type of signs you want, where you want them, what color you want. And
How
that,
many?
All right, well,
Just so we're not-
thank you, sir. All right.
This is one last little area I just want to talk to you guys about. This is a pretty critical area as well. This side of the street on the east here is residential only parking. I just want to make really clear, when we make residential only parking, that prohibits any employee from parking in that parking unless they're a resident of the city. And I am disinclined to change that rule because it's a pretty critical rule for how we manage parking
Absolutely.
downtown. So I think that's one of the things that project support isn't getting out of this that they would really like, is to be able to park their employees right there. But I think that that's just a challenge for us, and maybe there's more we can do here, but that one has implications that are wider. This side of the street here, this is currently paid parking, and the reason is because there are uses on Colorado Boulevard that require visitor parking, and it's a little bit closer to get to Elks and to United Center from here for some people, and it's just a little bit extra parking. I left this as paid parking, but one of the things we could do in this area too, that I was just telling Kate, is we can manage this potentially as overflow for parking for the library. We do this for United Center and Elks Club on Colorado Boulevard from time to time, where if we have an event or something that requires overflow parking, we have the ability to change the enforcement of an area for a shorter period. That'd be my preference, is to do something similar here, so that could be used for those purposes, but then it also is able to be used for public use as well, when the case is required. So I did not propose a change to this kind of north half of the block here.
Okay.
The only other thing I want to mention is project support in this area. You see the blue curve here. When this is in one-way operation, that would be handicap spaces as per they are now. In the summertime, when the marketplace is running, project support could either enter an encroachment agreement to use those spaces or not. So that's kind of how we've been managing it now. I think they liked having that space available to them this year. And we'll continue as staff. If other ideas come up, we're always happy to look at what could be done. This is one last picture I just want to show you. These signs are non-standard and technically not legal. They're not city signs. They don't conform to city standards and they need to be removed. But in return, what we're going to be doing is making this a lot better condition. And so I think that they were just, I'm not trying to say anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just that we need to make sure that they're standard city signs so that they conform to our sign code and all that kind of stuff. And so we can easily do that. This area right here, like I said, residential only parking, no employee parking, and can be used for bus and vehicle loading. And we'll fix the signs for them. And of course, we'll take care of that. The other thing is we made an agreement but they have a van and a couple buses that they need to park and just never going to not have to park them. They're not really supposed to park on the street as they do now per our parking plan. So what we've done is dedicated 2 spaces to them behind Tommyknockers. That might have to change as things change down there, but the city is committed. The whole process of this is trying to make sure they have what they need, but we're trying to make sure that we'll work with them in good faith and that everyone knows that we're working in partnership with them to make sure their buses have somewhere to go. And one of the things we've done too is in those bus parking spaces, they're going to be able to park their employees there all the time or other vehicles when the buses aren't there. So they can just use those and they'll be dedicated to project support use, which should, I think, help with a lot of the issue that we're seeing there.
Can I throw one thing in there? You chose a very particular picture for the handicap spot. That particular truck tends to stay in that spot for a very long period of time. And I know that that is one of the issues with your not having handicap have a certain amount of time, but it's just something to put in, think about. They park there as if it's their own private parking spot. So
One thing too that is
throw that out there.
interesting about that, because I didn't know that, so thank you. But the city has a process to give any resident a handicap placard on a
Sure.
post, and you can do that very easily through, it's a city council process.
Mhm.
And you guys have done that many times since I've been here, so maybe what we can do is reach out to that person and make sure they know that's available to them. And
That's a good idea.
then we
Put a
can
sign,
handle it.
maybe a note on their car.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure who owns it in particular, but I just know I've seen the car for
Okay,
many years.
well, that's kind of the plan. It sounds like the really big adjustment that we need to talk about is what happens in front of the hose house, and potentially if we can stick one by come and go.
I just want to clarify the spots you're talking about behind Tommy Knocker for their bus parking is not where we currently put those new handicap spots, is it?
No,
Okay,
we haven't determined the spots yet.
okay.
I was kind of trying to be flexible until we had the signs made, because we need to get those, we need to make a specialty sign for it. So I was kind of thinking that once we determine where they go, we'll tell them where the buses can go. And then when we do, when we move into mobility hub construction, if that does happen, then they're not gonna be able to be in the mobility hub. I think we're gonna have to find another location.
I just want to make sure because those two behind Tommy Knocker were put in because I have seen people, visitors and residents alike, get out in that lower lot and try and push their wheelchairs up the hill to the street.
Wow.
So that is why I think those two should be dedicated to the handicapped, the residents or the visitors and not the senior center buses.
Gotcha. All right, is council all right with
Yeah,
taking that direction?
that's great. Thanks, guys.
So Mayor, Council, what I'm hearing is, go ahead and implement this plan. The only change would be is that we'd add a spot on Minor in front of the hose house.
Yes.
And maybe two if we can fit them, and we'll work with John and Chief on that. And then a handicap spot, there closest to 14th Avenue on the north side of Minor.
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then we'll also see if we can add a spot on the
Come and
south
go.
side as well,
Yeah.
there by Come and Go.
Mhm.
Is that?
Yep.
Okay, just want to confirm.
All right, and lastly, we have identified motorcycle park. At really no sacrifice to car park.
Mayor
John?
Council, there's a couple places we can do this. We probably add, like, it's in my staff report, but depending on how we build the drive aisles and what John Bordoni is comfortable with, I think we can add at least 25 motorcycle spaces downtown. Specifically here by City Hall, there's a pretty big area that they could be added. There's a couple other areas detailed in my staff report. One is directly behind Westbound and Down. One is in the vicinity of the Vintage Moose. There's an issue with the spot by the Vintage Moose I just want to bring up. There's some room for parallel bike parking. They have talked for a long time about wanting to have diagonal parking there, but we won't have the drive aisle that we need to do that right there. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Parallel parking likely would work. And those are the spots that we identified, but basically it's a matter of striping and signage to add that motorcycle parking. It probably would be a really good boon for our economy. We have a couple of places downtown that fit into like poker run kind of places and things like that, but we don't really have accommodations for that. We do allow motorcycles currently to park multiple bikes in one space, but that's that can be people get particular about their bikes sometimes, so.
These sacrifice car parking, so.
No. We need to look at the drive lane in that spot right by City Hall, just a little bit to make sure that everybody's comfortable with where it is. But when I measured it, I think it's like 40 feet right there, which is enough to have a drive aisle there and to add those bikes into that space right off 17. And then I cut it a little bit short because I want to make sure that's the greenway access point from the parking lots, which we do need to probably improve with signage to make sure that's clear that that's the greenway and that's how you get to Waterwheel Park, because a lot of people just don't know that. But I think that if we keep it back from that a little ways, we'll still have an adequate drive lane and enough space for the bikes.
Jonathan, I want to thank you for all your work. A lot of measuring out there, but I think it'd be very worthwhile. I would just illustrate that Two Bears there at the bottom of Floyd Hill very busy with motorcycles. And frankly, I think it's because they feel welcome. And I think that the availability of motorcycle parking here, I mean, right now, they've been taking regular car spot. But I hope when this is posted, they'll feel welcome. And we will have additional visitors and at no sacrifice to our car park. So is everybody all right moving forward with a motorcycle plan?
Sure.
Oh, Scott?
Are they
Okay.
charged at the same rate of cars or?
Oh, that's a good question. What do we want to do?
They shouldn't be, really.
I kind of agree with you. I don't know what,
Less space, right?
Yeah.
I think we
Space,
gotta,
less-
Probably
less
get a
waste.
little bit.
I could do a little research. I don't know what is standard for motorcycle parking.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, we could go a couple ways here, you know, I mean, you could encourage it and make it free or say, well, they're taking half the space a buck. You know, I mean, a couple ways we could go there.
Could also make it free until people realize that we have motorcycle parking. If it becomes a problem, we can manage it.
Right.
So that'd be,
That actually is a, yeah.
But you're not gonna get motorcycles in some of the winter days either.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, I'm happy that we found some addition here without sacrificing a single spot of our car park.
Yeah, great.
And I will tell you who was on my case about this, and I'm thankful. Dan Delps, who you see riding around on his yellow scooter, if he's watching tonight. He was like, you know, this is some low hanging fruit. It's an easy one. Let's get some motorcycle parking posted. And I'm thinking that he was right on. All right, well, I would say just that we take 5 minutes, have a comfort break. We're a little long on the bright side. I think that our regular city council meeting will probably be a little short.
Am I on for pumpkin smash tonight or no?
Here's the thing. Some of them, I think they're old too dumb.
Can we amend the agenda?
They have that little spot, yeah.
Okay, how much do you have
Last
left?
space.
We're just gonna transition right now to regular meeting.
Yes, they're way
They don't wanna get.
Shirley.
Get them on board.
Okay, I think this is my terrible chair.
No, I didn't.
they're not
No, and they never happen, by the way. It's not like they're old. Ow.
Going on.
Yeah. But you're getting. Careful what you wish for.
Usually in the mornings. The afternoon is a little more.
The president of the police office would make
When they're driving.
The county kind of.
It's the only thing they don't want to do.
I'll say how it's-
Okay.
Oh, they didn't see it.
I actually have one going back to work. The bus was let somebody off down by Jenny's down towards the wildfire, comes that area, there's a crosswalk.
Yeah.
Bus stops, put its arm out, that was about 3 or 4 blocks back. The kid jumped off and then ran around the front of the bus, and then the lady was coming, the bus driver honked, just barely missed the
You heard
kid. The
it.
kid stopped because the lady kept going, and stopped her.
And two different
I
members.
think it was right by one of your businesses, right there, just up the road.
Yeah, there was
She
a
pulled in
fifth
there.
grader a few weeks, couple months ago, that got killed. Remember?
Oh, right here, John.
Just wanted to pass that along.
Right, right.
in this neighborhood, blocking us all.
Yeah.
Brand new buildings open up, ice cream shop and something. Well,
I
all
know.
excited,
Middle
ran
school,
across the street.
Two of the speakers.
I moved from all.
But they do crossing guards here, which is nice. A lot of other communities don't. Now,
She says that
people are. It's
I know, I know.
That's my bad.
So they basically say, hey, you're going out there.
which is good.
So, yeah.
The afternoons, like I said, are harder.
Like, yeah.
He was.
I asked him about it, he just launched out.
Yeah, right.
Fire.
Oh, yeah. I like, yeah. How about you?
Can't say no.
Yeah.
So, if you do one thing, another gets moved right up.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. Give more like,
We gave him cups too, because I'm like, what's blue? He said, oh, this is the.
right.
Yeah, right, it's pretty.
Yeah, I thought it went well too.
Apologize for my comment.
Oh, you're fine. A lot of things happen that I say in the same way, so don't worry about it. They brought it in middle school. I really wasn't offended, it was nothing joking, so it takes a lot to offend me, actually.
Glazed donuts.
At least you explained it and said it was a joke.
Yeah. You should have said it at the time, but most people didn't know it was a joke.
That's okay.
People are watching, they were texting me through that whole meeting, but.
What did you say?
No, they were, they were literally come up in the first.
Hello,
She misses us, so she's already back.
I know, I'm here. It's like an addiction.
You can still weigh in.
That's right.
Yeah,
You get your 3 minutes. every
certain
time.
things. anyways.
Oh, parking discussion was great.
Yeah,
I weighed in very.
I think it's gonna be, well, I think it's gonna be good. I think it's gonna make a lot of people over there happy.
I don't know if they still have license.
If they're gonna park them. Never mind.
All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular Idaho Springs City Council meeting for October 10th, 2022. Call into order at 7:21. Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here.
Kate Collier.
Here.
Jim Clark. John Curtis.
Here.
Scott Pennell.
Here.
Art Cacavet.
All right, all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. So we have an agenda before us, and I have a couple of modifications. I would like under, or rather, right after public comment, to include the pumpkin smash. And also down towards the bottom of your agenda, I would like to table city council appointment until our next regular council meeting. However, would like to move forward with the planning commission appointment.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. We'll move on to conflicts of interest. Does anyone feel they have a conflict of interest tonight? All right, hearing none, we'll move down to approval of the bills. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the bills to October 10th, 2022.
And I'm sorry, Kate, you meant September.
Oh, sorry, September 26th, 2022.
All right, and do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jim Clark. John Curtis.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. Moving to public comment. Do we have any comment tonight? Oh, yes.
Were the minutes
Yeah.
approved?
Oh, thank you
Yes.
Go ahead, Chuck.
very much. Sorry about that. Wow. May I have an approval of the minutes?
I'd like to move to approve the minutes from September 26th, 2022, and just say that they were excellent. Very well, good, great descriptions of what was going on that night. There was a lot going on. Thank you.
I would agree. And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we will move on to public comment. Do I have any tonight?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Okay, next up is the pumpkin smash. And
I'm gonna stay seated if that's.
Oh,
okay,
that's quite all right.
because I'm apparently not very good at walking. I assume everyone knows what the pumpkin smash is, maybe you don't. But everybody else knows. and
Self-explanatory.
you- So the pumpkin smash was actually started by Scraps to Soil, I think 11, 12 years ago. And the goal is to keep pumpkins after Halloween out at the landfills. And so Scraps to Soil has done this amazing job of turning it into this really amazing community event. We get a lot of people from outside of the community who come as well, and the premise is they smash up the pumpkins and then we compost them. So I am very excited because this is an event that I love doing with my children when they were younger. And this year I get the opportunity to be the event organizer through the rec district. So it's super special. So anyway, we are using 21st Century grant money for a portion of the event. If you're not aware of that, is a grant program that the rec district is a part of through the school district. We've done quite a few of this free programming through the grant over this last year or so. But in addition, we are looking for sponsorship for the event as well. So I would like to ask City Council if they will consider being a sponsor of the event. We do have different levels of sponsorship and they have to do with the activities. So I'm not sure if you probably haven't seen that. So I can share that with you unless there is an amount you would like to donate. But also in addition to the financial options, or instead of, we are also looking for a lot of volunteer help with this event, including like helping us to dispose of the pumpkins to the composting sites afterwards. So I'm not sure if City Council would like to consider being a volunteer on the event. So yeah, those questions can maybe up there.
how long's it been since we've done the pumpkin smash? Do you recall?
I've actually am following up with Scraps to Soil. Oh, like the event itself.
Yeah,
So obviously 2020 was canceled.
right.
And then in the year before, or at least last year, it was done at the school. And so it's been a couple of years since it's been held at the ball fields.
Gotcha.
Sam, it's a nonprofit, right? It's not for profit.
Well, it's through the rec district. So I don't know that you can, it's not now connected to Scraps to Soil. Ownership has been transferred to the rec district. So I wouldn't say it's not for profit anymore. I mean, it is, but not
Well,
officially, if that's what you're asking.
you guys are quasi governmental.
Right,
You're not a
We're
For
tax
profit
exempt.
business, right,
Yeah.
right. So technically,
Yeah, it's
it's
just like
trying to
any
pay for
other
itself, in other words, is that correct?
Yeah, because we're using grant money for it itself, but it's a pretty big event, so.
Right, right.
Well, I'm glad you're here to tell folks about it, just because this will be televised and some folks may see this. And I think that asking for volunteers was very wise. And I think you might even have some members on council that, you know, might help with this. But I would like to ask for council's direction on any donations to that cause.
Well,
I think we've given one in the past, haven't we?
mhm.
I
I
don't know
think
what
we
the
had-
amount was, but
Andy, we have given money to this in the past.
John and I recall $500.
Okay,
yeah.
and that's what I kind of remember that too. I think it's always great to honor and help and be a partner with any of the nonprofits that go on, you know, that do great things. So I would be okay with that. As long as we still have money and not mine.
Art,
I don't disagree, agree with Kate.
Scott,
I agree.
John?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would make a motion that we donate $500 to the Pumpkin Smash. And do I have a second?
A second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All those, or any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jim Clark. John Curtis.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Art Cacavel.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Oh, yes, Chief.
It's November 5th.
November 5th. Okay.
Thank you all so much. Just so you know, we have different stations and different amounts for the sponsorship, so I'll let you know which station you're sponsoring as well. And then go to the team.
Okay.
Is there a time also?
All right, well, thank you very much.
11 to 3. Okay, thank you.
I can tell you the city attorney will not be with us tonight. The city administrator, Andy, you don't have anything further, do you?
I do not.
Okay, all right. Moving down to the assistant city administrator, Jonathan, do you have anything further?
No, sir.
All right. We will go to the deputy city clerk, nothing tonight, right?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And Jared, no, you don't have anything for us, or do you?
I just wanted to mention to city council that last month, September, we had a lot of great participation from all of the city's committees. So they've been doing really great work. We had one week where we had, every committee meeting. So they've been very active in the community here as of late.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is good to know. All right, Chief, I know you were down here for no request for action, but I think I want to thank you for letting us all know about a certain individual that we should be on the look for. And just wondering if you would comment particularly on his description.
So, he's known to come into Idaho Springs. He is a frequent person that comes in, uses the rec center. So we communicate with the rec center and other businesses, the library. So he has last we saw, similar to the photo that's on the release, a beard, and he's 42 years old. And and there was a release that went out to the media as well, just that, we don't see necessarily a continuing threat to the community at this point, but certainly concerns, and he does have a felony warrant.
And is this person known to wear a hat?
Sometimes he wears a top hat.
Because I have
It kinda
seen,
stands out.
that's how I remember him.
Carries a stick
Mhm.
with him.
Yeah.
Chief, you think you're sending that to my IS email right now? John, I need to get that updated so I can get my password. I did not get that release, so I want to make sure I'm up to date on what's going on.
Okay.
That's okay. You can still send it there. I'll work with John to get that information so that I'm picking up that email or wonder.
And thank you, Chief, that you don't have anything else for us?
I was just gonna, go ahead. think
I
you
do have
should
something
comment
for
on this.
Chief though.
Actually, that gentleman walks by City Hall quite frequently.
Right.
So I'm finding this out right now, so good to know, because he walks by a lot.
I was curious, the number of people have asked me whether on the top of Montaigne, if there's still a community of unhomed people living up there right now,
So that's where
right?
he lives. And it's actually private property, but apparently there's permission to be there.
Really?
So
That's definitely outside of my jurisdiction.
Right, I know it is. I know it's not
The
city.
county has looked into that and they were gonna follow up to see if there really was permission, but it sounded like there was information that there was, so. And then just on a completely different note, I did want to let council know, just make a public thank you to Mike Nowak. He's the nephew of Bob Nowak who passed away. He reached out to the police department because they were dealing with his property and he donated a large number of patches, like for a patch collection, police patch collection to the police department. And some other, historic kind of materials. So I just thought it was great that he and his family are willing to donate some historical artifacts to the police department. So,
Absolutely.
What will you do with those, Chief?
So they're, if you stop by the police department, we put all the patches on a board, so they're all on display. And then I have a few of the other articles. Currently, I put a couple in my office, and then I also put an article in the lobby in a display case.
Excellent, thanks.
So-
Yeah, that's so nice, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much. Public Works, Mr. Bardoni, we got one request for action, is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
All right. And do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve $140,000. Wait a minute, I don't know how to do it. $140,000 and $100. How do you even say that? That's really hard. To JVA Engineering Inc. for the engineering services related to phase 1 of Highway 103 water line from budget line number 54-72-7310.
Oh, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Jim Clark. John Curtis.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Art Cacavelli.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We don't have any committee reports. We don't have any city clerk or treasurer reports, so I will move down and I will be calling and getting the choices for city council as I did last time when Lisa Manifold was selected. And we will we'll talk about that on our very next regular city council meeting. We do have 60 days from Lisa's resignation to have her replacement. So there's time to do this, but it will give folks time to contemplate and weigh in. However, Lisa Manifold is in attendance tonight, and Lisa, you of course were our applicant for Planning Commission. I want to welcome and thank you for doing that. And I would like to make a motion that we accept Lisa Manifold as our new Planning Commission person.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Lisa, please come up and take the oath.
Okay. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Lisa Manifold, 1002 Colorado Boulevard, Idaho Springs.
Excellent. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me.
I will.
I, Lisa Manifold,
I, Lisa Manifold,
do solemnly declare and affirm
do solemnly declare and affirm
that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado,
the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado,
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Idaho Springs,
and the laws and ordinances of the city of Idaho Springs,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
of Planning Commission member
of Planning Commission member
for the city of Idaho Springs,
for the city of Idaho Springs,
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations. We love having you.
And hopefully they will love it too.
Oh, you're gonna be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving down, this should be the last official action tonight. I would like to read a proclamation for the National Friends of Library Week proclamation. Whereas Friends of the Idaho Springs Library raise money that enables our library to move from good to great, providing the resources for additional programming, much needed equipment, support for children's summer reading and special events throughout the year. Whereas the work of the Friends highlights an ongoing basis the fact that our library is the cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and to connect with the thoughts and ideas of others from ages past to present. Whereas the Friends understand the critical importance of well-funded libraries and advocates to ensure, that our library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services to all ages, including access to print and electronic materials, along with expert assistance and research readers, advisory and children's services. Whereas the Friends' gift of their time and commitment to the library sets an example for all in how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Chuck Harmon, proclaim October 16th through 22nd, 2022 as Friends of Library Week in the city of Idaho Springs, Colorado, and urges everyone to join the Friends of the Library and thank them for all they do to make our library and community so much better. And then in witness hereof, I hereunto set my hand on behalf of the city council and cause to be affixed the official seal of Idaho Springs, Colorado, this 10th day of October 2022. I would like to make a motion that we accept this proclamation, and I sign this. Do I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I will sign this. And lastly, I would just like to remind everybody down here at the bottom, we've got our next work session for Monday, October 17th. And the next regular session where we'll be confirming city council person is October 24th. And I'll be in contact with each of you. Does anybody have anything else before we adjourn?
I just had one question, John. I'm sorry, I skipped over you. I had somebody ask me about the orange netting at the park.
We'll probably come down in a week or so.
What was it going on? What we're
We
trying
were
to,
trying to reseed the park,
yeah.
and unfortunately, it
Yeah, I
hasn't
know
worked
about
real well. It might wind up that we're just, if council desires, either takes 4 to 6 inches of dirt and soil out of there and put proper topsoil in and sod it, or whatever council has the desire to do.
Well, you know what I want.
Artificial grass, I was told, could be close to
Yep.
$900,000.
Yeah. Oh, and it's not a joke. It's, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's seriously, how do you weigh it? Like, it's a big thing, but it does last for a while.
It does last for a while.
It does last.
I've heard that artificial turf, they're worried about contaminants from that.
They are, dude. I don't know what to tell you. There's bioproducts to everything, including everybody in this room.
So, anyway, we gave it an attempt, but.
I got you. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Anything further? All right, I want